Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, all New York City congressional Democrats have signed onto a letter calling on President Biden to intervene at Rikers Island and for the Justice Department to launch a civil rights investigation. That effort was spearheaded by Richie Torres, the congressman from the Bronx. Our Washington, D.C. bureau reporter Kevin Frey broke that story on New York One. He joins me now with more. Good evening, Kevin.
Yeah, good evening, Errol. This letter now, it was originally only signed by a handful of our lawmakers. Now the entire delegation from New York City, all the Democrats anyway, as you mentioned, now signing on to this. They want to see the DOJ get involved. Among other things in this letter, they describe what are deplorable conditions, in their words, some of what you've already heard from Gloria, talking about the cleanliness issue, the ongoing sanitation problems, the issues with staffing, the issues with the coronavirus and violence and the deaths over the past few months. Among other things, when I spoke to Congressman Richie Torres about this letter early on today, he told me that it is not an inevitability that this is the way this jail has to be, that this is the result of malign neglect. Here's a little bit more of what he told me.
There are 6,000 detainees in Rikers Island, and 90% of them are awaiting trial. And Rikers Island has increasingly become a death sentence for those who have never been tried, much less convicted of a crime. And if that is not a civil rights violation, then I'm not sure what would be.
Now, of course, the question is exactly what this sort of federal intervention would look like. In the letter, they describe it as the administration, they would like them to coordinate with New York State and city officials to stabilize, in their words, the current crisis prior to the facility's permanent closure. I did ask Richie Torres exactly what that looks like. He kept pushing to further oversight. Of course, there is already the federal monitor that is monitoring what's going on at the jail, as we've already discussed so far a little earlier this hour. And now, this is not the only letter that has been sent by the delegation this week. As you know, Errol, earlier this week there were 4 Democrats from New York City sent a letter to the governor and to the mayor demanding that the jail be shut down immediately, that those that are detained there released. That was something the mayor dismissed almost instantaneously. But nonetheless, there is obviously a lot of building pressure from lawmakers here in Washington, calling for some sort of action to deal with what's going on at Rikers.
And Kevin, do you have any sense of whether the members of the delegation have been in touch with the mayor, whether or not they've been talking to the city before they took this step?
That is not clear to me at this time. I should say that when it comes to the DOJ and the White House and so forth, I have reached out to them. The White House deferred any sort of comment to the Department of Justice. DOJ has not gotten back to me yet as to whether or not how they plan to respond to this letter once they start to process it.
But you're right in the sense that, you know, the federal monitor that we were talking about, the Nunez litigation, I mean, this is one of the big investigations, one of the last big ones that Preet did before Donald Trump fired him as the leader of the Southern District. The Department of Justice knows a lot about what's going on down there.
Right, and so if the federal government is already involved through that monitor, the question then becomes, and this is not clear at this point, what could more oversight or what could pushing the government to do more really add to this equation? That is an open question now.
Right. Okay, so now, Gloria, the mayor, of course, has been late on all of this. He hasn't visited the jail.